Hello, everybody. Welcome to another review of Chop and Slice. I am one of the co-hosts, Michael. This is
Brandon.
We are here to review Smile 2022. Brand new movie. Just released on streaming platform Paramount Plus. Go check it out if you can. We're here to give our thoughts and breakdowns and ratings on the movie. And we'll let you know whether it's a good movie to go see or not. So,
Spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead, folks. It's still currently in theaters as well. If you can, go see it in theaters. If not, like I said, it's streaming on Paramount Plus. And, so let's get
into it.
Let's rock and roll, baby. So the movie opens up with a woman passed out on a bed with her daughter looking over her. And you later find out in the movie what that's all about. As of right now, you got no incline on what's happening or nothing like that. So we meet our main character, Rose. She's a psychiatrist, and we see her talking to one of the patients. His name is Carl. He just keeps basically talking to himself. She's got to die. He's got to die. A bunch of BS and whatever. She can't seem to help him, and then they take him and put him back in the loony.
In the loony bin.
The loony bin. So, yeah, no, don't take it offense to what we're saying. You know, there's a lot of patients out there, people like him, that do need the help. So, hopefully, if you know anybody involved like that, they get the help they need. It's a very serious issue. So then we see her boss, Dr. Desai.
Dr. Desai.
Desai, whatever. He's talking to her about sending a patient to go get help that didn't have insurance. So, and that was an issue.
Kind of bitches her out for that, but she was just like trying to help.
Yeah, she was just trying to help. She didn't understand what the point of doing this is if they're not going to get the proper care that they need. So, after that, she meets another patient named Laura. And Laura is talking to her about seeing something that's haunting her. She says it's pretending to be something else, wearing people's faces like masks. Talks about it smiling at her.
Well, no, she wasn't smiling though.
I said she talks about the entity.
Oh, right, that it's smiling at her. Right, she wasn't smiling at the...
Not at this point, no.
Right.
And then she mentions today that is the day that she was supposed to die. The entity told her. She keeps cutting off Rose about it, and she tells her she's not listening to her. Then all of a sudden we see Laura.
Because she was saying that, like, she was convinced that what she was seeing was, like, hallucinations and not... But Laura was trying to tell her, like, this shit is real, like, this shit's really happening to her, but Rose finds it hard to believe and just diagnosing her with, I don't know, some sort of hallucination disorder or something.
And it looks like she hasn't slept in, like, 4 years. So.
Yeah.
Funny enough, she actually played in a movie called Laura Hasn't Slept, the actress. Funny enough, Caitlin Stacy. So I thought that probably is relevant to this movie. All of a sudden, we see her fall backwards, and it looks like she's getting possessed. Then we see...
And that was kind of a jump scare, too. That
Yeah.
kind of had me jump out of my seat, where she, like, looks away and then looks back at her, and then, bam, like, she freaks out.
We hear a vase break. Then that's when Rose goes to get the phone to call for medical attention, help. And then all of a sudden she turns back. Laura is smiling at Rose and then slowly slits her throat with one of the pieces from the vase. And it's pretty
graphic.
pretty brutal. It doesn't cut away from it at all. No off-screen death in that.
It's always better that way.
Basically, she talks to two of the detectives about Laura's death. One of them we meet here, but he turns out to be a side character, a very important character later on. And then after she talks to the detectives, one of them thinks Laura is just crazy. The other guy, which we later find out his name is Joel, he kind of is more open about what happened to Laura, and he's not just assuming she's crazy. All right, and then basically Rose goes home. Then all of a sudden she's going to pour a drink. Then we see Laura in the corner, darkened room, just smiling at her. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, a little bit.
And she was also whispering her name, Rose. Rose. Rose.
All right, now you're starting to freak me out.
And then we meet her fiance, Trevor. He seems like a pretty nice guy. Pretty cool guy at the beginning. Like he really does love her.
What are you talking about? He looks like a total douchebag.
He's
I knew he was an asshole from the day.
Yeah, but he acts like he's a nice guy. He's always got a smile, no pun intended. Looks like he just is happy in life, and that's good for him, I guess.
Well, of course he's happy. He's cheating on her and totally getting away with it.
Well, we don't know that he's cheating. It's implied a little bit. Then we later see that they go out to dinner with Rose's sister and her husband, Holly and Greg. And then they just talk about her job. Greg makes fun of her job, basically, and doesn't take it serious. They basically criticize her for working at a medical hospital that treats mentally ill patients. And then later on, after that, the next day, we see one of the detectives that was previously talking to Rose about Laura's passing, Joel, at the hospital, and they turn out to be ex-lovers, which we later find out. And then we also see her holding a coffee mug with a smiley face, which was interesting. There's a couple little hints of smiley faces.
Little Easter eggs in there.
Yeah. Then basically her boss sends her home for a week without pay because she's acting really stressed out.
With pay.
Yeah, with pay. My bad.
Yeah, I don't get why she was all like, yeah, I won't take the week off with pay.
Yeah,
Like,
she didn't want to take the week off.
I mean, let us know in the comments what you would do if your boss offered you to just take a week off with
Yeah,
pay.
and she was like arguing against it. She was working 80-hour weeks.
That's
she
insane.
Just seems really stressed out. And that was before she saw, because she got sent home because she saw, Carl smiling at her. She tried to, and then he got up and started yelling at her. And she called for all this help. And they basically tackled him and stuff. But it turned out he was just sleeping. And she didn't know she thought it was a real life occurrence. That he was actually, trying to get in her face, which wasn't the case. So, yeah. And then, after that, she goes back home. There's a lot of going back home to work, back home to work, back home, doing this, doing that. She goes home, and she basically pours another drink of wine, which she ends up breaking when the alarm sounds off. You don't know if somebody broke in there, what's going on at this point. Basically, she answers the phone to the Homeland Security, and it turns out to not be them.
It's, I think it's like the demon.
The entity.
The entity. There you go.
That's probably best to refer to it. And we find out that it's not the entity because when she's on the phone with the Homeland Security, quote unquote, we actually see the actual real phone ring. And you're like, oh, shoot, what is happening here? This was a little surprising, and then a little kind of scary. And then she picks up the phone, and it is really Homeland Security. We also hear, the entity tell her on the phone, I'm behind you. Look behind you, Rose. Are you sure you're alone? That's kind of creepy. Later after that, her husband Trevor gets back after they fix the alarm system or whatever, and he wants to know what's going on and all that jazz. And she said she's just been really stressed out. Then we see Rose looking for her cat. Mustache, right? That's his name.
Mustache.
She can't seem to find him, and then they just kind of... Who cares after that? Later on in this movie, we see her listen to the audio of her talk with Laura that went down at the hospital. And she keeps replaying back, trying to figure out what this... she hears like this little noise, and she's trying to figure out what this noise is. Then all of a sudden, she's listening. This is a kind of one of the bigger jump scares. She's got her headphones on. You see her playing with their little laptop. The bam, out of nowhere, we see Laura's dead body. Rose! Go up to her ear like that. And she falls out of the chair and freaks out.
Yeah, and then I think her douchebag comes downstairs and sees her like frantic, like with the knife.
Yeah, like scaring her.
Right, and he's like trying to, like...
She held onto a knife.
Right. She just goes like totally psycho there for a second.
Yeah, it's very weird. Pretty good acting though, I thought. Rose,
Yeah, you know what? I did kind of notice that
Sosie Bacon is the actress that played Rose, and she was really good in this.
And it seems like everyone that like had like this sickness was actually looking like they were actually scared,
Yeah.
It felt pretty real.
It was actually really good acting in this movie.
Yeah, the acting was pretty spot on.
And
I did like the acting a lot.
And funny enough, her dad is actually Kevin Bacon.
For real?
A little interesting fact there.
Oh.
Maybe that's why you didn't find her attractive. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess so.
Sosie Bacon. She kind of looks old. Too old to be his son. I don't know.
A little bit.
I mean, Kevin Bacon is like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
He's getting up there. But good to see her taking after the mantle of Kevin Bacon. So after that, Rose starts talking to her therapist, and that's where we find out that Rose's mother died by suicide. It's heavily implied, which I'm going to assume is a fact, that she OD'd on some pills.
And it almost seems like when her therapist brought that up, like she kind of like took offense to it a little bit. Like she's trying to like put that behind her.
Yeah. And some reviews actually thought this, some of the people I saw online said that in that scene, they believe that the therapist was the entity at that time. Which is interesting, but I think it was just the therapist, but...
Yeah.
We see her, then, she goes to her nephew's birthday at Jackson. Before that, she bought him a little gift, a little toy train. So she goes to her nephew's birthday party, gives him the gift, or he gets the gift, opens it, and then it is her dead cat Mustache.
That actually kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I thought it was going to be something fucked up, but then I saw the dead cat. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, that'd be pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
Pretty...
God, how How would that, like, make you feel, like, if that was, like, you?
It'd be pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean... Whew! That was... Yeah, that was something. It totally traumatized that kid for life.
She then later sees one of her sister's friends smiling at her, and then she falls back through a glass table. We see glass sticking, like, out of her arms.
Yeah, ooh.
Cut up her arms pretty bad.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
She's in the hospital at this point. You see her get bandages and all that. So, her fiance Trevor drives her back home, and she attempts to tell him about everything that's happening to her at this point. And of course, he doesn't believe her. He's one of those inept boyfriends, fiancés in these movies that never believe the victim. It's not true, you know. Just a bonehead.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, she starts researching about this guy, Gabriel Munoz, which is Laura's teacher, who Laura saw before she went nuts, wacko. Laura witnessed her teacher bludgeon himself. Said he smiled and then bludgeoned himself with a hammer repeatedly. So that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
She's in her bedroom, and we hear Laura start whispering Rose's name. And you can't see Laura at this point, but you just hear, Rose, Rose, Rose. Then you can see her standing in the dark shadow down the hallway with Rose's door open. Next morning, she goes and talks to Gabriel Munoz's wife. She poses as a reporter. She talks about, his wife tells Rosa about everything that was going on with her husband. And then Rose later finds out he saw a lady die by suicide. So now she's starting to figure out there might be a pattern going on with all these people dying by suicide in front of other people. And then that person is now...
Right. Infected, if you will.
Yeah, infected with this entity. Then his wife later finds out she's not a real reporter and kicks her out of the house. She's not pretty happy about it.
When all she was just trying to say was that her husband wasn't crazy, that there was something going on, and she took offense to that, and I don't know why.
She just didn't seem to, want to be... But, I don't know. She probably had her own thoughts about it and just didn't want to be more traumatized by what happened to her husband.
I guess.
And you see a quick snapshot of what happened to her husband, like his face after he died. Pretty brutal. Like his teeth were all broken and his tongue was...
Yeah, he got like a big gash down the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
So, we then later find out that the lady Gabriel, well, this is what his wife told Rose, that the lady Gabriel saw die, because he witnessed a lady commit suicide as well, die by suicide. This was in a hotel he was staying at. The lady saw somebody die at the gas station. But that same lady witnessed a suicide a week before she died by suicide at that gas station. So she saw somebody, the lady that Gabriel saw kill herself, that lady saw another dude kill himself in front of her. So it's a pattern going on. So then basically Rose goes back to her crib and she sees Trevor and her therapist sitting together. And Rose is not too pleased about this. They get into it, and Rose leaves and goes to her sister's, Holly's house. She tries to explain her situation to Holly, but at this point she just thinks she's crazy. She thinks she's a whack job.
I would too.
Yeah, and she, they talk about how Holly left because she couldn't deal with her mom's issues, and she was older, and her mom put a lot on her, and Holly was like, yeah, sorry, I don't let it control my life like you do. So you can still see that Rose is being affected by her mom's death, and it's very traumatizing to Rose even at this point. And then Rose gets back into her car. Then we see her sister walk back out. Holly, she walks back out, knocks on the window. Then her head flips upside down into a smiley face. And that basically we knew that was the jump scare from the trailer. So that was very cool.
I actually didn't watch the trailer for this movie, but I saw that comment.
I think I showed you the trailer.
Maybe you did.
Yeah.
Or wait, yeah, I think you did. But I don't.
I don't think you were paying attention. And then after that, we see her stuffing her face at a diner, and then she gets a call from her ex-boyfriend Joel, and he calls her and tells her that there's 20 cases that go back with the same pattern. So he was researching up to 20 cases. So, because previously we saw her, go into Joel's house, apartment building, and they talk about the cases and everything. He sees the videos. He understands what pattern is going on. So he's more invested into it now, which is not good for him. Later we find out. Joel tells Holly one victim actually killed someone in front of a person and was able to get rid of the entity. While the person saw the murder, that individual actually got the entity. So they're implying that if you have the entity, you can kill somebody in front of another person and get rid of that entity that's taunting you or whatever. So they go visit this guy, this murderer, and Rose has to sit down with the guy. He tells Rose that he had to kill his neighbor in front of his neighbor's wife, and then she ended up getting the entity. And then Rose basically screams out, "I'm not going to kill anybody." And then he finds out Rose was actually the one that actually had the entity.
And then he starts to totally freak out, get the fuck out of here, because he didn't want it again.
He didn't want that again. She goes back home, and then and she's just chilling, thinking about what to do next. Kind of looked like she was going to jump out of a window for a second. You don't know what's going on. And then later her therapist shows up at the door. And this is where things start to get really creepy. They start talking. Her therapist, how's things going? I want to make sure you're not a danger to yourself. And then all of a sudden, she receives a call. And the therapist goes, "Shouldn't you pick that up?" And then it ends up being her therapist on the phone call. And then she drops the phone. And then her therapist is just there smiling at her. And it ends up being that entity. There's not a whole lot they tell us about this entity. No origin story. Which I would have kind of liked to have known more.
Yeah, where it came from. It just randomly just appeared one day.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the origin is of this entity. That would have been cool. It was very similar to that movie, Truth or Dare. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I've seen it. That was actually pretty decent.
it was okay. It wasn't one of my favorites, but
Well, it's not one of my favorites either, but
it was very similar to this. After that, it cuts away. Basically, the therapist is holding her against the wall, and we don't know what happens after that. It cuts away. She probably snaps out of the hallucination or whatever. Then we see Rose in her car. She grabs a kitchen knife that she has with her, walks into the hospital. She goes to into Carl's room, and then basically the doctor walks in. Her boss, Dr. Desai, walks in. What are you doing here, Rose? You're supposed to be on vacay. And then she goes to stab Carl repeatedly in the stomach, in the chest. And he's just laughing. He's smiling at her. Then we look back, and the doctor is peeling his face off. Turns out to be another hallucination. The doctor runs out. I gotta call the cops. You're not safe. And then
he didn't threaten to call cops.
Well, he ends up calling the cops.
He just said to come on inside while I call someone.
Well, who do you think that is?
I guess cops.
Then later we find out Joe calls Rose as she's driving, said there's an APV out for you. And Rose figures out a smart idea. I thought this was smart. She said, I need to be alone. There's no way, this entity can harm anyone else when it's just me. So I thought that maybe she was going to be able to get rid of it, because if there's nobody else to give it to, I mean, how long can this thing stay with her, It needs to feed off trauma and stuff like that, so. And other people, so. So she's driving to her old family house that we see in the opening scene So it turns out to be her mom in that opening scene laying on the bed. And Rose is the little girl in the opening scene that we see staring at her mom. So she goes to the old family house. She walks in the door. She walks into her old house, her old room. And, she's kind of just reminiscing on being a child, And that's where we see her mom's old room. And there's a lot of trauma being built, and that, it's affected her entire life. And then we see her walk into her mom's room, and that's when she's confronted by her mom. You actually see her mom. Her mom's talking to her. We find out Rose refused to call the cops when her mom needed help. And her mom ended up overdosing, I'm assuming, because you saw all the pill bottles and all that. And her mom ends up blaming her for her death. Then randomly her mom turns into this monster. Kind of looks like Marilyn Manson, I thought.
What, from Sweet Dreams and shit?
Yeah.
I guess a little bit.
Skinny and had all this hair and kind of,
Yeah.
looked like a he-she. You weren't really sure what.
Yeah, I couldn't exactly tell.
Just this big looking thing.
Honestly, it kind of looked more like the creepy thing from Barbarian. Yeah.
Yeah, they look similar.
A little bit.
Maybe that, I don't know. And then basically this thing tackles her down, and then she ends up knocking over this lantern or whatever, and then hits the being with it, and then sets the being on fire.
And that part had me a little bit confused, but then
you understand why.
Right.
And then the whole house burns down. We see her later drive to Joel's house, and she knocks on the door and asks if she can stay the night there, and if she'll watch him sleep to make sure she's safe. And then he's like, yes, I'll stay here with you. I'll stay with you forever.
And then that's when...
Yeah, that part had me creeped out, because because I've seen this movie twice. I've seen it in theaters. It was your first time seeing it, but at first I thought that she did defeat it.
I didn't, because that thing's not even physical.
Well, I was hoping she defeated it.
But there's no way she could have defeated it that way. I knew it wasn't over. For it to end like that, no way. That didn't even have me sold, and I know the way these movies go. It wasn't going to be that... What, she broke that thing's arm with her own hands and then just set it on fire and then just walks away from it? Nah.
Then you see him smiling. She runs out of his apartment building, which she ends up running into her front yard back at her house, the old house.
Yeah, that was pretty freaky.
Yeah, that would like blow your mind, dude. And then Joel shows up. We see Joel, idiot. I don't know why he went. He loves her, but, and I'm assuming he already knew where she lit. It never explained that, but I assume she showed him back when they were dating where she grew up at and stuff like that, and he probably had an idea of where she was going, you know. Because it feels like he's a guy that that she probably opened up to instead of her current, you know, fiance. So her fiance wanted nothing to actually deal with her problems.
Right,
Joel,
he just called her therapist.
yeah, Joel seems like a guy that actually cared about her, that really wanted to know.
This guy, the guy she was actually with, just wanted a piece of ass.
It's what it seems like.
Yeah, like when, and that's the thing too, especially with women, dude. They like to be able to vent, you know, and when you're not there being supportive, that's when,
Yeah.
you know.
And Joel was supportive, and he seemed like she seemed like how that relationship probably ended was she probably opened up to him too much and started pushing him away. It seemed like he really loves her and cared about her, and all that. So we see Joel try to get into the house.
The door was locked.
Yeah, Rose locked the door, ran back into the house, locked the door. He was banging on it and trying to knock the door down, come in. And then we see the entity. You actually see what he looks like in its own figure. Has like layers of like teeth all across his face, like this big friggin' monster. It's kind of creepy, and you see him step into her mouth. Opens up her mouth completely, like all the way, and then you see him step into her mouth and presumably takes over her body. Joel eventually enters into the house. We see Rose dumping gasoline or lighter fluid onto her body, all over her, and then later she
turns around,
smiles,
smiling.
Lights a match, and sets herself on fire. While Joel
was watching.
And then we know at that point what happens next. And then the movie ends, and we get the lollipop, oh, lollipop.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Lollipop. Doom, doom, doom. That's how the movie ends. So, a lot to talk about with this movie. This movie I thought was really good. One of the best horror movies I've seen in a while. I didn't expect much out of it. I knew from the trailer it was going to be kind of scary. Ended up being pretty scary movie. A lot about trauma. Talked a lot about trauma and mental health. And I don't know if it left a I don't know on that ending if it's like
trying to
say
set up for another one.
No, like so the entity itself feeds off trauma, right? And she never got over that trauma of her mom dying and her not being able to make that phone call to save her mom's life. So is it saying that she should have got over that trauma, and because she didn't, like, it's a bad thing to have trauma, or what? Because it attaches itself to people that have trauma, that are traumatized. So,
well, and also considering the fact, like, every time it, when it finally kills you, it's now traumatizing the person that watches it, and that's what allows it to enter into you.
It latches itself onto people who have had traumatic experiences and stuff like that. Because it mentions Laura's grandpa. Something probably happened there that affected Laura with her grandpa. And then it mentions that Gabriel Munoz's Laura's teacher that, bludgeoned himself, mentioned that he had an issue, that his brother died in like a car accident 20 years ago, something like that, and he didn't ever get over that. Just like it attaches itself to people with trauma. So it's
Well,
like
what would happen if I didn't have any past experiences like that?
maybe it doesn't latch itself onto you.
You think so?
Maybe if you're just a happy kid.
I think
It feeds off fear.
Trauma. Fear is different than trauma. Trauma is like trauma is like an experience.
Yeah, so I think it latches itself onto trauma. People who are traumatized.
I think what's really allowing it to latch onto you is the fact that you are now traumatized because you just watched someone kill themselves in the most brutal way. So now you're officially traumatized.
Right, but it already.
I think what you've been through in the past is irrelevant.
No, it definitely, because her mom dying played into it.
Well, that's just something they just added, but I think it's going to latch itself onto you regardless if you
I don't know.
It.
I don't think so. I think it latches itself onto people who have had traumatic experiences. It feeds off that. Feeds off.
Well, not too many people have had really traumatic experiences.
Yeah, but like they
that.
said, they've only had 20 cases. So we really don't know how far back this thing has gone, or
right, because we don't really have any origins or anything.
I would like to see a sequel on it, maybe. But, like, it couldn't involve Joel, because, like, Joel, or whatever his name is, he's a cop. He could just shoot anybody and get away with it, Kind of. It'd be pretty easy for him to get rid of the thing, I think.
Yeah.
I think he would go down the route of just shooting some... Not saying cops can just shoot anybody and get away with it, guys, but I'm just saying that...
they do have better chance of getting away.
Yeah, better chance.
They're all buddies with the judges and stuff, but
they got a chance to claim self-defense a lot easier, stuff like that.
They can cover up evidence and
yeah, they got ways. I think that's probably how that would happen. But I would like to see a sequel on this, and that is kind of unfortunate.
Actually, I'd like to see a prequel on this.
Prequel would be cool.
And find out where this thing...
But we know that it won't be beat. That's the thing with prequels. You go into the movie knowing that you can't defeat this thing. And apparently there's no weakness that it has. Like, you can't just defeat it. I mean, you can get rid of it with murder, but there's no way of, like, killing off this entity. I want to find out if there's a way.
Well, if the dumbass hadn't gone back into the house, okay, and just let her do her thing... It couldn't have latched onto anybody, therefore it ceases to exist.
Or maybe if the person, does just off himself, herself, and where's it going to latch on at that point? If you do it alone.
Right, if she had offed herself, nobody witnessed it, therefore nobody was traumatized by it. See, I think that's the main thing that is... causing it to latch on to other people's. Now you are officially traumatized by that one experience from them committing suicide. I don't think it has anything to do with past experiences, otherwise it'd just be latching onto any random person.
And I kind of find it interesting that, in a way, this was kind of like partly his story now, too, because he already knew all this stuff now. He already knows what's going to happen to him now that he saw the entity. He already knows...
He knows what's coming, and he has more time to prepare for it.
Yeah, so I think he, obviously he's much more better prepared than anybody else ever was.
Right.
Because now he knows how to attack it at this point.
Get rid of it.
And it's kind of interesting now because he gets to now know that what she was going through. Because he probably thought she was like, let's be honest, he probably thought she was just crazy.
Right.
But still was trying to...
Love is love,
Yeah, and now he's like, oh, shoot.
She was right.
Yeah. And now think about it. Now he's probably seeing visions of her now.
Yeah. And he's got to keep seeing her, like, on fire.
Yeah, that's creepy, dude.
Yeah. So, what do you think? You want to get to the rating?
Yeah. I'd give it an official rating of... I give this movie, really, I enjoyed it. It's pretty scary. I gotta give it at least a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was a really good movie. One of the best psychological thrillers I've seen in a while. Yeah, and I thought it was like more of a modern, updated Nightmare on Elm Street in a way, and just haunting, And yeah, it's unfortunate because usually you're so used to seeing the main character survive and beat this thing, but in this movie it doesn't happen, which is kind of going into it. You probably thought she was gonna beat it, right? Did you think she was gonna die at the end, or maybe at a point you did? But I'm sure when she started having this, you probably thought she could beat this. She seemed so innocent.
You know what? I was kind of playing tug of war with it in my mind because I kind of know how modern movies are nowadays.
Yeah, if this was 80s, she would have beat that.
Right, exactly. But modern horror, they've kind of switched it up a little bit, and they like to leave you on cliffhangers. So, and I do think it's better that way. I think it's kind of better that she didn't.
She was a likable character, I thought. She was a good person. It's kind of crappy that she died, but it's how it's supposed to be. So, what's your rating?
I'm gonna give this rating a 7 out of 10. I liked the movie. I thought it was good. Definitely above average, and I do like that they again, like what we just talked about. I kind of like that she didn't survive, even though I was kind of rooting for her.
Yeah, she was a likable character.
Yeah, she was. The jump scares were really good. It was just like a lot of them you didn't even see them coming, and this movie really keeps your.
It's
your
intense
interest.
the entire movie. You don't know what's gonna happen next, and you don't know what's real and what's not. What's an hallucination, what's not, and now that I think about it, I wish that her douchebag fiance would have got it, not the cop.
Mm-hmm. But I don't really give it 10 out of 10 because it's not like
It's not
it's not it's not an absolute masterpiece.
It's a really good horror flick though, for a first time view.
Right.
If you're trying to show it to a buddy or
right, I could definitely recommend this to somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely go check it out on Paramount Plus or in theaters if it's still out in theaters. It's been out in theaters for like 3 months somehow.
Well, I think it's doing really good.
This was it's made over $200 million at the box office. It was only supposed to come out on streaming, but it got a lot of buzz, so they released it in theaters, and it has done great numbers. And I assume there wasn't supposed to be a sequel to it. We'll see if they release one. I would personally like to see a sequel.
I'd rather see a prequel.
It'd be interesting.
I need to know where this thing came from,
Well, maybe you find that out in the sequel. Usually they...
Sometimes they can, but... Because, this thing just appeared out of nowhere in random day. Modern day.
It'd be interesting to find out how far this thing goes back.
Yeah, maybe it goes back in ancient times. Who knows?
And it's... Because I think it started in Brazil somehow, and it made its way over to America, they mentioned. Joel mentioned that it started in, Brazil. So, it's interesting to find out. It's a pretty creepy, traumatizing experience.
So, that leaves it at a chop and slice rating of 14.5.
Out of?
20.
Yep.
Out of 20. 14.5 out of 20.
Like we said,
not bad.
Go watch it. Really good acting in this movie. They did a really good job. A lot of the shots, I could have went without some of those upside down.
Yeah, you know what? That's another thing that really brings it down for me. I mean, that was making me so nauseous watching that. The upside down shots.
They did a little CGI. You could tell some of the blood was CGI, which, where's the practical effects?
Right.
I wish it, because when it showed the doctor ripping its face off, it would have been better if it was practical effects. Would have been a lot cooler. They had a big budget for this movie, so I don't know why they didn't do that. But all in all, like I said, go check it out. It's pretty creepy. Good movie. I got not a lot of whole bad things to say about it.
No, I don't either.
The acting, the main character, Rose, she was great. Sosie Bacon.
Yeah, this was definitely a job well done, I'd say.
Yeah, and wow. Really surprising. I didn't go into this movie thinking it was going to be that good, but pretty impressed. I enjoyed it. I really, really did. So hopefully you guys go check it out. We're going to keep the reviews coming. We are working on releasing a podcast. Hopefully in the next few months you'll get your official Chop and Slice podcast that we're getting a lot of things going. I know we're just doing reviews as of right now, but we're going to get some stuff cooking. Keep watching movies like we're always going to do. We're going to watch the old. We're going to watch the new. Trying to keep up with a lot of new releases. And figure all that out. So, any last thoughts on this movie?
Other than just go check it out, and I don't really know how to close it. Don't smile creepy to people, I guess.
No. Always have a smile.
Yeah, always have a smile. There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Especially when you go to work. Just always...
yeah, always let your boss always see that you're smiling.
Yeah.
Like you're happy to be there.
All right, guys. Have a good one. We will see you next time. Have a good day.
Keep smiling.
Keep smiling. Later. Guys.